And we are back. Welcome back to Primary Colors Podcast, where we bring you hot shit and hot takes. Listen, today we got a big special announcement. I can't wait to announce this and get everyone involved and spread the news. And I hope y'all spread the news as well. Today we got my great brother Conrad Blackburn in the house. Round of applause. Then we got my brother Imani in the house.
Yo.
And always, it's your graceful and humble host, Shaq TV going live. The credentials is there, the experience is there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't come for me, don't try me. Hands, feet, work.
Let them know.
So, fellas, I know we've been gone for a minute, and I want to apologize to the fans. I want to apologize for everyone that supports us. We want you to know we love y'all, and we're gonna be partying more often. And there's gonna be another part as well that y'all can tune into and see these brothers' faces.
Mm-hmm.
How we been, Imani? How we been?
I've been good, bro. Just working.
Mm-hmm.
Work's been kicking my butt left and right.
Okay.
Uh,
Same.
but I'm maintaining. I feel like November has been like the one of the roughest months at the
Mhm.
job.
Outside of the working though, because I know
Oh,
you got the
okay.
little poetry stuff going on as well.
Yeah, outside of work, poetry's going well, man. I
Mhm.
host a monthly poetry show in
Okay.
Harlem. Last Friday of the month. Next
Mhm.
one's coming up December 1st. But yeah, we performing once a month.
Okay.
Things are going good. It's nice to have like a solid thing to do outside of work,
Yeah.
and I think it's been like the most thing contributing to like my mental health.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if I didn't have this outlet,
Yeah.
we would not be making it right now.
Okay.
That's for sure.
Mr. Blackburn, how we doing?
I'm busy too, man. Work's been kicking my ass too. Been doing a lot. Because I'm holding like three different positions in the office right now. So
Right, right.
between those three things, I don't really have much time outside of that. But I've been chilling. I do the same thing. Go to the gym.
It's bulking season. What season is it?
Right now, I'm just maintaining.
Right now, you just
I
maintaining.
like where I'm at right now.
Uh-huh.
I'm starting to think I need to get a little bit bigger, but I'm gonna maintain for a second.
Okay, okay, okay. It's funny because when Conrad says bulking season or cutting season, he looks the same to me. I'm gonna just be honest.
All right, but that's because you see me every day. Bro. But if you didn't see me and then saw me months later, you'd be like, "Oh, damn, you gained some weight or you lost some
Okay.
weight."
That's fair. That's fair. Me, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I've started a run club in the Bronx called the
Yeah.
Bronx Burners.
Yeah, he did.
And that has been taking much of my time. And I'm gonna find a way to better manage my time so I can be here for y'all as well. But our run club gave out our first scholarship 2 weeks ago. Um, I was very proud of that because there was one time where I needed a scholarship and I needed a little helping hand, and we was able to do that for one of our student athletes.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of myself, and I'm very proud of the Bronx Burners and everyone who donated. Thank you.
Can I give you some flowers real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like every human being has a obligation to serve other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some people do it through their jobs, some people do it through their hobbies.
Right.
You work for a public defender organization, so you
Mhm.
do it through your job in a way. So the fact that you took your extracurricular like life and
Right.
still use that not just to build yourself up by running and getting your health together,
Mhm.
but also giving back to people and giving back to the Bronx in particular,
Right.
that deserves some recognition, that deserves some applause, and I can't wait to see what you continue to do with it. So
Thank you.
please
thank
take these flowers, man.
I'm
Thank
proud
you.
of
Thank
you.
you.
Very
thank
proud.
You, thank you. Thank you.
Very
thank you.
proud.
Wolf, how we doing on my sound? Am I loud enough? Okay. Well, we are no longer here to talk about me anymore. I would like to talk about my good brothers and what they do for a living and what they enjoy and what their passion is. Um, tell the people about you announced earlier that you guys work in a public defender's office. Um, what does it mean to be a public defender?
It's a broad question,
Uh-huh.
but to keep it brief, so I would say this: Conrad and I both work for the Bronx Defender's Office.
We do.
We got hired the same year. That's my boy.
Same exact time.
The only two black men hired in our practice, and I'm really proud that he's still here. Because if he wasn't still here, I don't think I'd still be here.
Okay.
Likewise.
We've been doing it for 5 years now. We're on our 6th year now. Um, So like we kind of like I want to say big dogs, but we started out like not knowing what we're
Little
doing.
pups. You started out
And
little
like
Nah,
pups.
don't do
knowing
that.
when I say big dogs, like knowing who were 5-year attorneys when we first got here,
Mhm.
we looked at them in a certain way.
Right.
Like now I know that people are
Yeah.
looking at us in that exact same way.
Of course.
Yeah, but to answer the question, a public defender is a criminal defense attorney that represents people who can't afford an attorney. So we don't get hired by clients who pay for us. We represent the public. I don't know if I'm missing
Okay.
anything.
What you got?
The only thing I'll add to that is it's not just criminal defense nowadays, because nowadays there are public defenders in the housing world, immigration world.
Mm-hmm.
New York's trying to start the housing for all, but then there's employment as well that Bronx
Right.
Defenders does. So
Right.
it's expanded since just being criminal defense when it first started.
Right. This is not meant to be like a BXD plug, but like BXD does have like
Yeah.
these wraparound public defenders who like if you get arrested
Mm-hmm.
and your housing gets at risk, or you're at risk of losing your kid, or you're at risk of being deported,
Mhm.
we have public defenders who can represent you on that front. But we just handle the criminal
Criminal
matter.
defense. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if let's say I get kicked out by a landlord, I can be appointed an attorney for free? Or do I have to get arrested in the criminal system first to be
No,
to
there
get
there
the-
are housing
There
court
are
lawyers.
housing, yes. So
Okay.
we have housing court attorneys at Bronx Offenders
Right.
that will represent clients. There's no constitutional mandate though that you get a housing attorney, where there is for criminal defense,
Right.
Okay.
right? Like the U.S. Constitution says, you get a public defender, right? A criminal defense public defender if you're arrested for a charge.
Uh-huh.
But that hasn't broadened to anything else yet.
Okay. So I'll have to seek out the housing court attorney.
Yeah.
Yes.
And New York is special in that way, where you do have public defenders for housing, public defenders for immigration. Things like
Okay.
All right, put the mic closer to you.
that.
Is your first rodeo?
My first rodeo.
I would like to ask Conrad, why did you choose to be a public defender?
Yeah. So, it's a bit of a long-winded answer, but
Take your time.
so
Tell your story, bro. Don't be
for sure. I come from an immigrant household. My mom, fresh off the boat from Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was really my sperm donor, wasn't really in my life at all. So I grew up in a single parent household. And, with that, as we know, comes financial struggles. So I grew up in the hood for the most part in my formative years. And I think it's well known nowadays that, you a black kid in the hood, you can expect police interaction at some level.
You become a statistic.
You don't even have to be doing anything. You can just
Right.
be breathing, bro, and police are already down your neck. So, I experienced that at a very young age, just like walking to school, being stopped by the police. Where you going? What you got on you? Like yada yada yada.
Mhm.
Right. So these kinds of interactions happen all the time. So I kind of grew up with, some level
A vendetta against cops.
I wouldn't say a vendetta against cops, but I will say some level of distaste for authority.
Okay.
Right. But then, like, there was one incident in particular that really changed my worldview and how I was going to move. And when I was like arrested unlawfully when I was like 13 or 14 years old.
Okay.
And I was just trying to go to the movies and get a movie.
Was it a date or something?
No, it wasn't a date. It was with a bunch of friends.
Okay.
I was with a bunch of friends, and I had left my wallet at home. Y'all know me. I'm a forgetful person. I recently learned this because I have ADHD, but whatever. So we're gonna move past that. I'm a forgetful person. So I left my wallet at home that day. So I didn't have my wallet. So I was trying to buy the movie.
He actually
ticket.
left his wallet at home today. But
Hey,
go
it's
ahead.
funny because
I
I
did.
left mine too. So we
See,
on to
look
the
at
next
that.
day.
Look at that. So I was trying to get the movie ticket, didn't have the money. So like all my friends had already bought their ticket and they were inside. So I had like walked up to them trying to get money from them. And then a cop approached me. And this is in Tallahassee, Florida, which I don't know if you know the geography of Florida, but Tallahassee is pretty much South Georgia, East Alabama. So this cop has the deepest Southern accent. I would
Damn.
not be surprised if he was in the Klan, but whatever.
Uh-huh.
So, I'm trying to get money from my friend, and he's like harassing me, saying, what are you doing? I was, I got a fresh mouth. I've always had a fresh mouth. So I told her, like, what does it look like? I'm trying to buy a movie ticket. Right. And, obviously he didn't like that challenge to his authority.
Uh-huh.
So he continued harassing me, asking the same question. I gave the same answer. And then finally, he just grabbed my arms, put my hands behind my back, and arrested me. I'm 13, 14 years old at this time.
Damn.
So he takes me upstairs to this back room, starts talking. He calls my mom. My mom talks to him. Then he comes back and he goes, "Oh, you're not the type of person I thought you were. So here's what I'm gonna do." Acting like he's doing me a favor. So he's like, "I'm gonna drop all these whatever bullshit charges he had on there," and he's just like, "I'm just gonna leave the trespass." And so he acted like he's doing me a favor. He
Right.
just leaves the trespass, whatever. So like I actually get arrested for trespass that day. They do the whole thing, take me to the jail. My mom has to come and bail me out.
Wait, do you remember what movie he's gonna go see?
I don't remember. It's a long time ago, brother. I do not remember.
I'll go.
And so yeah, I stayed in jail that night. My mom came and got me the next day. I got out. I had to like do a whole bunch of community service, and the case ultimately got dismissed. But in that moment, like in my mind, the idea of being a public defender was started because I was like, look,
This
I
is
don't want
right.
people to go to like I don't
Yeah.
want other people to go through this shit, and then somebody needs to be there to like fight the police that do this kind of thing. And so that's how the idea kind of started in my mind, even though I didn't know like what being a public defender was in that moment. So
Okay. That makes sense. Imani, what about you? Why did you choose to become a
My story is not as cool as his. I've heard people answer this story all the time, and oftentimes it's really good stories.
right?
I don't have a story like that. And I think it's funny whenever y'all see the flyer come out. I think it's very emblematic of like who we represent because he has a very like similar background to the person who he will be associated with on the flyer, and as do I with the person I'm associated with. So I didn't grow up in the hood. I didn't get arrested at a young age. I grew up knowing people who got arrested, but like not people who were close to me, people who were intimate towards me. So I didn't have that same experience. So for me, it was more so a combination of the world around me
Okay.
and my college and law school education that pushed me towards public defense. So I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I grew up being told I love to argue. So from a very young age, it was like, all right, I'm gonna be a lawyer. But what kind of lawyer was I didn't know yet. So my freshman year of college, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but it was like one of the first times that I was old enough to pay attention to a prosecution or like a live thing happening on the news. And it was a story about Troy Davis. Long story short, he was accused of, I believe, killing a police cop's um, daughter, or maybe it was cop. I forget what it was, but he was on death row. He was set to be executed that year, and within like the last few months prior before he got executed, a lot of the people who were primary witnesses recanted their testimony and was like, you know what, it didn't happen. It didn't happen this way. He's innocent, and like there was a big campaign to get him like a new trial to get him released.
Because people are saying like
exactly like the main witnesses that they relied on to get this conviction are now saying it didn't happen.
right.
So I remember like a lot of my friends are in our dorms on like the couch in the area just watching this happen live. And then they decided to go through with the execution. And that's like the first time that I watched it. I was too young for OJ. I was too young to watch these other public things.
Right.
But this is the first one that I was watching. And then after that, a whole bunch of just police killings was happening. It was Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, Philando Castile, Sandra Bland. All these happened within my formative college career and then and law school career. So when I got to law school, I was like, all right, I know I want to be a lawyer, but now I've been exposed and privy to so much injustice happening to our people. I got to do something about it. Like now I knew, okay, I'm gonna use my degree to fight the system. I didn't know how to fight the system, but I was gonna fight the system.
Okay.
So when I got to law school, that's when I started to explore, okay, what are the different ways I can do this? I thought about doing civil rights litigation. That's why I actually went to DC for law school because I wanted to do civil rights work. I wanted to be because when you grow up and you learn about Black struggle, civil rights is the avenue for that.
Right.
You know,
it's like basically level one, like the basic. Like,
exactly. It's like you become a civil rights lawyer and you fight injustice on a grand scheme. I interned at a few civil rights organizations and it was cool, but it's a very slow process. You don't really get to interact with people that often, and you don't really get to feel your impact until like years later. So I really got pushed out.
So what are you saying is like being a civil rights lawyer, right? You were more working on the back end of things.
I want to say the back end. You're working in like in a systemic world.
Right.
So like for instance, like we're we will be trying to change like police practices, or we be
Okay.
trying to sue for discrimination, and like these kind of suits.
Uh-huh.
If it's a class action suit, if it's
Right.
a can take a very long time for it to actually.
It ain't gonna be no
manifest.
24-hour kind of
And,
thing.
Exactly.
and you're not getting the face-to-face interaction. with
Exactly,
clients.
exactly. Like the Civil Rights Act, whenever it was passed, was probably like a decade work of work, and I don't know if that's the kind of fight that I want to have. I want to have a more immediate effect,
Okay.
more immediate
Boots on the
impact.
ground.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then, so yeah, when I got to law school, I really got exposed to the criminal and justice system, like first-handedly, more so like in my education. I got exposed to books like, and I plug all these books for y'all, like New Jim Crow,
Mm-hmm.
Just Mercy. Another book I believe is called Locking Up Our Own, to where it just like contextualize how bad things are for people who get arrested, whether you're guilty or not. It's just this is a fight that people don't really know about, and because people who are accused of crimes are deemed criminals, no one really cares about it, or no one really thinks
Right.
critically about the things that affect them. But I got exposed to that, and it just got to a point where like once I seen all this,
Mm-hmm.
I can't do.
You got radicalized.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
Nah, I gotta say- I gotta say it like that.
Why not? Don't be scared of the word.
I would just say, no, I wouldn't say that. I couldn't look back. And that's my thing. Like once I saw all the harms that's done,
Mhm.
I can't now go do a career that's not directly impacting the wrongs that I've seen.
AKA you were radicalized.
Sure, maybe that's what it is.
Right. You know him. He gonna try to be political. He gonna try to beat around the bush.
So yeah, so like based off what I saw,
Yeah.
and then based off my education, I just got to a point to where I couldn't do anything else. So I view it more as like a calling that happened gradually.
Right.
I didn't have, an experience that pushed me in the direction. It was just more
Right.
like, all right, I have my
But
life.
that proves though, like you have a heart in a way, because like when you see things like that, it deep down in your soul, you knew that wasn't right.
Right,
You knew this is not right.
right,
Us as human beings, we should not be living like this.
right.
So I would say that is kind of like your ancestors, like they probably experienced something, right? And now it's in your DNA, and you're like, hey, this ain't right. I feel like this is wrong.
Right.
But now I want to know. We've been talking about public defenders a lot. What does it mean to be a private defender now? Why does the government say, "Oh, you're entitled to a public defender"?
Mhm.
Why? What happened to the private defense? What's going on with that?
I'll let Conrad take that one.
Yeah, so private attorneys they're exactly that, right? They're not public, so they get paid for what they do.
Y'all don't get paid?
We get paid, but we don't get paid from our clients. We get paid directly from whatever the government agency is that's giving us money for the most part. Now,
Okay.
we work at a nonprofit office.
So the
and we're
government
funded-
pays public defenders,
Right.
and private defenders get paid by the client.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And if just going back to what the idea of a public defender is, it's court appointed, right? It's your court appointed attorney. So whatever system is funneling money to the court is a system that's paying the public defender. Right?
Okay.
Because you're part of that government system, even though you're separate from the prosecution and the judge. Whereas private attorneys,
Allegedly.
they are not court appointed for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are private attorneys who are on a panel who get cases when the public defender agency in the area can't take the case. So then
Okay.
it goes to a private attorney that's getting paid by the court for that case, right?
Okay.
But that private attorney probably has a separate caseload where the client is actually paying him for his services, right? So that's the difference. The court didn't tell this guy to do it. He
Mhm.
contracted privately with the person that's paying him to defend that person.
Right. And the way that manifests, like the main difference
Mm-hmm.
is that private lawyers are paid by their clients, which means their clients are most likely not usually poor.
Okay.
We represent indigent, which is people who can't afford lawyers. So like the
okay.
majority of the demographic that we represent are
Mhm.
people who are poor.
Okay.
The majority of people who have private lawyers are wealthy to some extent.
Okay. So why didn't you choose private?
I thought about it. I mean, to me, it was like the best of both
It's still
worlds.
public defense. You're still defending people that are being accused of things they may not have done in
Right.
these communities.
Right.
Why not do it that way?
Because the harms that impact people who are poor are not present with the harms that impact people who are wealthy. So if I wanted to be a private lawyer, I would be representing people who are not growing up in the hood, who are not having these types of interaction with the police officers. So it'd be a different fight.
Okay.
It'd be a different fight. It wouldn't be a fight against marginalized or vulnerable people. It'd be a fight for uh maybe the white guy who got caught with a dime sack in his pocket when he was driving.
Right.
And the cop was like, you know what? I'm gonna let you slide, or I'm gonna give you a slap on the wrist. And now I'm trying to argue community service for him.
Right.
When the counterpart of that person who gets caught with some weed on him or some other kind of drugs in the
Mhm.
hood, he's getting locked up for sure.
Right.
And a few years ago, he's facing some time.
Yeah.
So it's just two different types of fight. And
Okay.
based off of like what I've been exposed to, like that's the fight I wanted to fight.
Okay. What about you, Conrad? Why
Very
not,
similar.
Why not private?
Yeah, so very similar, right? Like I said, I wanted to help people that I feel like are in similar situations as me, right? So
Mhm.
mostly it's going to be people that live in the hood. And obviously, if you live in the hood, you're already deemed indigent, right? Because like public housing is what we call, aka the hood, the projects, right? So you're getting government housing, which means you're probably going to get a government lawyer as well. So, I wanted to make sure that I was helping people that were in the same scenario as me for the most part. And I knew that private attorneys, for the most part, are not doing that. Now, don't get me wrong. You got people in the hood who are doing the thing and can pay for a lawyer.
Right.
And like they go get a private lawyer, because they have their ideas and notions of what a public defender is going to be able to do for them. But, I knew that that's the exception to the norm, right?
Mhm.
So I know I wanted to help people from the hood. So, public
So what I'm hearing is not that y'all just want to be public defenders. It's more about I want to defend people that are being taken advantage of in these
Yes.
particular
Yes.
situations in neighborhoods.
Yes.
People
Okay.
who are generally powerless when we think
Right.
about it in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
Okay.
I feel like you're confusing the words a little bit. Like it's not just that we want to do criminal defense attorney.
Right, right.
It's that we
Because
want to be public defenders.
you want to be public defenders.
right.
Okay.
Instead of doing any kind of private work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So with all that being said, Conrad, I'm gonna ask you first. Being that you had the situation you had when you were younger, um, how do you deal with situations where you have clients that are facing 15 years, 20 years, and it may seem like a lost cause?
Yeah, it's tough, man. Especially in the felony world where you're looking at mandatory minimum time and people are looking at these long bids. It's really tough. You gotta kind of divorce your own feelings might not be the best word for it, but divorce your own feelings from what's going on. Right? Because obviously, in my opinion, it makes you a better lawyer if you actually are coming from a place of like if you are feeling that impact. If
Mhm.
you are feeling the impact of, oh, this person's gonna go away from for a long time, like I don't want this to happen. I think you're gonna do better work on the case, right? But at the same time, in order for you to be an effective advocate, you got to kind of divorce the like your own emotions from the case, right? So, I mean, that's the first thing.
Can I fight you back on that?
Yeah.
So one reason why y'all say we shouldn't defend ourselves is because emotion will be involved. Like we'll be emotional about it. Like we'll basically not make clear decisions. We'll make decisions based on our emotions. So now you're saying that a lawyer that is emotionally invested would be better for the case. Make that make sense to me.
Yeah. So, what I mean when I say that is if you actually care for that person and care about the community, you're going to want to put in the extra effort. You're going to want to put in the work.
Okay. And this comes with like staying late, reading up on old cases, and not just like
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Staying up late, being more creative, even just being more creative about the case and how you look at the case. Right. If you don't come from it from a place of care, you're not going to do, in my opinion, what it's willing to take to have a successful outcome in the case. Because we don't care. If you're just like, oh, well, this offer isn't that bad at the end of the day, then you're just gonna, ship your client off without caring. But the reason I brought that up is to say, like, you also kind of in a way have to divorce emotions at some point from the case because you have to give your client the objective field of view about what's going on in their case. And you can't do that if you're only giving them a one-sided emotional counseling. And so that's the first thing. You got to go into it. Yes, like that shit sucks. This person is looking at a fuck ton of time, but I got to go in there and I got to give this person the real deal of what could happen, what I think the best outcome is, what yada, yada, yada. So you do that. And then I think it's like just being real with the person, like going to your client, you get that first interview with your client, you got to talk to them. You got to build the trust with that client because that client doesn't know you from a can of fucking paint. Right? He don't know who you are. He's not going to trust you automatically with giving you information about the worst part, the worst thing that's happened in his life recently. So you got to build that connection first. In order for you to get out what you need to get out in the client interview, right? So you build that modicum of trust with them, and then you got to talk to them about like what happened, right? Because like the world is not black and white. There's gray everywhere, right? So like you're gonna have the police story, the prosecution story of what happened. They always doing the most. They always gonna make it seem like this person's a monster, get them out of the community.
Yeah.
Right. But we know that that's not true.
Uh-huh.
We know that there is something that brought this person here in this moment. We don't know what that something is, but it's not just this person's out here committing crimes just because he wants to commit crimes, right? Something happened, right? So you got to get that story from your client. And, once you have those pieces, you just got to keep pushing forward. You got to do what you like, use the available tools that you have to do what you need to do in the case, right? Like the law, it's not always on our side. It actually was written against us. It was written by slaveholders and racist people. So like for the most part, the law is not going to be on our side. But we smart, we care about the case, so we're gonna think creatively about what we could do with the law. And then from there, it's just like caring about the case, putting the work in, and looking at the evidence the prosecution says they have. You going out and doing your job and investigating, and then relying on your client and giving your client their options and letting the client make the choice at the end of the day, right? To me, that's what it's about in these serious cases. Is like you give your client the good, the bad, and the ugly, and it's your client's life, and they got to make the choice because you're not doing the time with them.
Right.
They doing the time.
They doing the time.
Right. So like you gotta give them that power to make the decision. And I think, once I've done all that, like cared about the case, set up trust with my client, like did what I needed to do know about the case, and then gave my clients the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they make that choice, then I'm able to more sit right a little bit with what happens on the back end, even still knowing that whatever fuck time this person's gonna do, if they're doing time or if they're convicted, like is unfair. Whatever the fucking time is, they shouldn't spend 1 day in a fucking cell, 1 day locked up in a cage. It's unfair. But I gave my client the power to make that choice, and we rolled this out together. And then this fucked up system did this to him. So that's how I handle the tough cases.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. I just will say that it's very nuanced in the ways that like we deal with this conversation. Because like we'll have a situation where like we have a client who's facing, let's say like 25 if he goes down that trial. But he's offered 10 if he doesn't go down a trial. He could take a plea to something lesser.
Right.
I think those are the hard conversations. That's when it makes it much harder to have, especially when it's someone who is like adamant about like I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I think it's different. It's gonna sound messed up, but it's different when you're dealing with somebody who's like, yeah, I did it, and like now we're just trying to like mitigate the harm that happens, and like we know we're not gonna win the case. But if you have someone who is like, I didn't do it, how can I take a plea to 10 years? How can I do 10 years of prison time? But especially someone who's never been to jail in their life,
Right.
like those are real like life considerations that I don't feel like other than people who work in the medical system, like like doctors and nurses who like are dealing with people's like life and death. I think the next like heaviest job is what we do when we're like dealing with like people's actual like life and time. But yeah, I use all the tools that Conrad said, but it's just very tough when like and in most of these circumstances, the client's gonna be like, well, what do you suggest? What do you recommend?
Damn.
And that's hard because like the things that I have to consider are different than what he has to consider. Like for instance, like if I'm 30 right now.
Yeah.
If I'm faced with those options, I probably would say I'll take the plea.
Yeah.
Right.
That means I'm gonna get out. I'll be 40 years old. I'll be a little less than 40 years old when I
Right.
get out.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I'm gonna be thinking about it. Like, it's not worth the risk.
Right.
But then there are some people who are like, they 50.
Mm-hmm.
If they take this plea, they're gonna like miss the majority of like their kids' life, their grandkids' life. Like,
Right.
it's just different considerations that we have. It's just tough. There's really not no one clear cut answer to answer that question.
Nope.
But yeah, it's just tough.
So I'm hearing it's tough. It's a lot of decisions to be made.
Mhm.
Do you get burnt out? Is your passion for, these people are in messed up situations, like you said, you seen it firsthand on TV and you're like, yo, that's messed up. Like, is your passion that strong, your will that strong to have you keep coming back case after case after case after case to be like, yo, this is overwhelming? Do you ever feel like it's getting to a point where it's too much?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the shelf life for public defense work is like what, maybe 3 years, and
If
even
that,
even
yeah.
3 is on the low end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think those who do this work for a long time have like an unusual ability to like stomach the work.
Okay.
I think what's helped me is that like our job has other types of things that we can do to like progress it within the job to where
Mhm.
I'm not just handling a case.
Okay.
So like if I was still just a staff attorney, meaning like I still am managing 60 cases
Mm-hmm.
and half my cases are felonies, a lot of clients incarcerated, it'd be much more difficult for me to still be doing this work.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's tough. Like, the burnout is real. The burnout
It's
is
real?
real. It's real,
Very.
especially when you're connected to it. When you have
Mhm.
all these people who are like in Rikers right now,
Right.
you're going to Rikers.
And y'all visit Rikers, right?
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Routinely.
Mhm.
Okay.
Routine. Like,
So y'all see this firsthand, like y'all go into the prisons and y'all
Yes.
see this firsthand.
Yes. Well, a story I always tell somebody. I had a client who he was incarcerated only because bail was set at $1,000. He couldn't afford $1,000.
$1,000?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he couldn't afford $1,000. He was in for over 8 months, and I went to go see him, and I see him. He has a black.
Wait,
eye.
no. We gotta slow down, bro, because we need the people to realize what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you're telling me, let me know if I'm understanding. So you're telling me, right? If this person had $1,000 for bail,
Yeah.
they would not spend any time in Rikers.
Correct.
And how long they was in Rikers for?
8 months.
8 months. Because he didn't have $1,000, he spent 8 months in Rikers.
Right.
And y'all can say what y'all want, right? About rapists, killers, and all that, right? But let me tell you this. Rikers is not somewhere you want to be. Rikers, I get it. Everybody deserves a second chance. Everybody deserves punishment or whatever you want to say.
Mhm.
But Rikers, to go to Rikers because you don't have $1,000 is a little messed up. Mind you, he hasn't been proven guilty of anything yet. All that happened was he was accused. He didn't have $1,000 and he went to Rikers for 8 months, people. 8 months. Oh my God. Did you ever feel like you wanted to pay the bill for a client?
Yes. I'm with a lot of my clients. I don't have the money though. And it sounds bad to say that because like the people we represent are actually indigent.
Right.
So I have more money than he has.
Yes.
But
you don't have money to bail out all your
Exactly.
clients. Yeah.
Exactly.
And you can't legally, which sucks.
Right.
Wait, so the law firm you work at, do they have like emergency funds for clients? Or
It's not
Not for-
our organization.
yeah.
There are organizations out there that do bail people out,
okay.
but it's only for like certain types of situations. So sometimes
Oh.
sometimes they don't handle felony cases.
Okay.
Sometimes they won't bail out somebody if the bill is more than $2,000.
Oh, okay.
And it's gotten worse over the past 5 years. There are a lot less funds, and there are a lot less people that funds will bail out.
Okay. Same question to you, Conrad.
Yeah. Sorry, what was the original question?
The burnout. Do you
Oh,
do you
yeah.
feel a burnout? Is your passion? Is that one cop? Is he ingrained in your memory so bad that you like, listen, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get back at him?
Yeah, so actually that's a good question. But I'll say, yeah, burnout's real, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Burnout is real. Especially like in the work that we do and where we work. Because I feel like the place that we work at, they do a good job of hiring people who care about the job. But I think they also rely on that too, that people care about the job.
Right.
Right. So, there's the tendency to overwork people because they know that we care and we're going to still do what it takes to help that client out. And so I think that's taken advantage of a little bit. Because the cases just keep stacking up and there's no reprieve for that. So like the burnout happens and it's real. Like Imani said, luckily the same office we work at, like there are opportunities to find a different like practice where you could still have some face-to-face client cases, but like maybe do other things in the background at the same time.
Right.
And that'll lessen your caseload a little bit.
Like for you do policy.
Yeah, I do policy work as
Mhm.
well. So, we go and we try to change the laws that are on the books.
Okay.
And so like that's one way of dealing with it. I think to your point, one thing in my mind is like never forget where you came from.
Mhm.
Right. And so like that's always seared in the back of my mind. And I think that's what keeps me going for the most part is like, these people are in fucked up situations like you were. Like you, Conrad, at 13 years old, would you want to give up? Would you want a public defender that's gonna give up? Right. And so I think that's what kind of keeps me going is like, no, I don't want a public defender that's going to give out. I do want people who are going to continue to care about the work. So that's one thing. But then another thing is, kind of like a mentor of me and Amani's.
Mhm.
I don't know if she's going to appreciate being shouted out by name,
She won't mind.
but Archana, who just did a murder trial. Her thing, one thing she says is like, a true sign of a public defender is not about how you handle yourself in your wins, but
Mhm.
how you handle yourself in your losses, right? Like, are you going to get back up and fight for that next client? Like, or, are you going to let this loss affect you to the point where you are just going to be done with it? And I think that's also sticks with me. Like, I just got to get back up. I just got to keep fighting for the next person because they need it. So I think that's how I try to avoid burnout and going to the gym.
You be taking it out on the weights
all the time, bro.
Boundaries, man. Having strict boundaries in this job and having
Yeah.
outlets is
Mhm.
key.
It's tough though.
Okay.
Man. Setting boundaries
It's
is
tough,
tough
but it's
sometimes.
key.
It's key though.
Okay. So I do want to get into more of like the burnout part of it because I want to understand more about what goes on with the cases in terms of how much are you allowed to have? Is there a limit to cases you have? And Conrad talking about saying that he's working with policy now, so that means like his cases are dropped.
Supposed to drop.
They're supposed to drop. They're supposed to drop. But I do want to ask a question before that. I want to ask, how do you balance the needs and interests of your clients with the requirements of the law and your obligation as a public defender?
It's such a loaded question.
It is a loaded question. So let me put it in my terms. Um, how how do you, like Conrad was saying, right? You get extra creative when you care about the client, you care about what's going on. So how do you balance being creative and also following the law and um also balancing what your client needs? So let me give you a scenario. I'm facing 5 years, right? And you're in your mind, this is like, yo, Shaq, we go to trial, we're winning. But I'm like, bro, if they offer me 1 plus 6 months probation, I'm taking it. But you're in your mind, on the back end, like, yo, we could take this to trial, we gonna win.
Yeah.
How do you balance that? Because part of you is like, hey, I want to be creative. I know this is something I could do, but my client is telling me one thing, and I also know something else.
That's actually kind of an easy question.
So give it to me.
All right. So in the work that we do,
Uh-huh.
there are decisions that's entirely up to you
Uh-huh.
that we can't make. No matter what we say, if you say this is what you want to do, that's what we're doing. Those decisions are whether or not to go to trial,
Uh-huh.
whether or not, if we do go to trial, if you want to testify or not,
Uh-huh.
and then if you have the option whether or not it's going to be a bench or a bench or jury trial.
Damn.
Those are all entirely your decisions.
But those are the big ones.
Right.
That's why they're your decision.
They're big ones, but it's yours. So like, if I'm saying, hey, I can win this case,
Uh-huh.
and you're like, I know you can't, but I want to spend as little time as possible,
Uh-huh.
and I don't want to go forward the risk.
Yeah.
Okay, it's what we're doing. As long as I feel like I've done my job to like educate you on the risks
Uh-huh.
and how strongly I think we could win the case.
Uh-huh.
There's a level that I would push, like, hey, I think we should really fight this case. I want you to have, to not have a criminal record at all.
Mhm.
Like, I would do all that. But if you hear me and I have done all the counseling and I've done all the advice that I have, and you say, I hear you,
Mhm.
but no, okay.
Damn.
If you say, I hear you, but yes,
Uh-huh.
then it's time to get creative. Then it's time to have,
Now it's time to cook.
fun, but like now it's time
Uh-huh.
to cook. Exactly.
Uh-huh.
But so let me ask you, what's that thing that allows you to be okay with you just stepping back and being like, okay, that's your decision? Because you know that we know that it's hard for people to do that.
Right.
So like,
I would say if I've done all that I can.
Yeah.
Like if,
And their characters are showing already. Y'all already seeing who's gonna be a hot one and who's not. Y'all already seeing it.
I'll say if I've done all that I can. If I have like made him aware of like all the risk of taking the plea, if I have told him how the strengths of the case, and for me, I probably would have brought somebody else into it. I would have had a colleague, maybe someone like you, or have a supervisor come in and also
Mhm.
try to give them advice as well. If I've done one of those two things and I feel like, okay, I've done all that I really can to give this person advice and he's
Mhm.
still saying no, that's when I feel like I'm okay. If I have like not done all that yet, then I would feel bad about the decision he makes because I feel like maybe I should have pushed harder, maybe I should have said more advice. But if I've done all that I can, then I feel much more comfortable with like, all right, it's your choice.
Yeah, and I think it's generally the same for me.
Okay.
If I'm being honest with myself, sometimes I probably will. I'll get stubborn a little bit sometimes, and I'm like, all right, well, just hold on. I know you want to do this. Just hold on. Let me see what I could do.
Yeah, you try to let him sit. You try to let him sit and think,
Not-
sleep it off.
Not even sit and sleep it off. It's like, let me try one more time to get you a better offer. I know you want to take an offer. I know trial's off the table right now, but let me try to get you a better offer.
Oh, so you try to get him, even though he says he want the year in probation,
Yeah.
you try to get him probation. You try to get the year off. You try to be like, hey,
Exactly.
I know you want the year in probation.
Right.
Let me try to get the year
Yeah.
off. Okay.
And so that's still in a
being
way,
creative. Yeah.
Yeah, it's being creative, but like at the same time, it's also like not immediately honoring what the client wants, which like is something I grapple with because like I know the client's want is to just take that deal.
Right.
But in my mind, it's like, okay, you want to take a deal. Let me get you a better one.
Right.
Right. And
'Cause
so
as someone that been in the criminal system, sometimes you just trying to get it over with. I'm
Exactly.
tired of coming to court. I'm
Exactly.
tired of missing work. I'm missing out on so much other opportunities by
Exactly.
me coming to court and doing these things.
Exactly.
I'm just trying to get it over with. I like, hey,
Yeah.
whatever deal they give me, I'm gonna take it. Not because I think it's the best thing for me, or not because I want to do that. It's just because I'm just over this whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of like the psychology part of it, where
Right.
y'all have to like be like, okay, I see this person is getting frustrated,
Right.
and I gotta try to make
Yeah.
this decision.
But like,
I'll-
sorry,
no,
go
you-
ahead.
you
No,
go
I was gonna say just like bringing it back to Imani's point. Even then, when I'm like, all right, I want to push a little bit harder for a better deal, I still give the client that choice.
Right.
I'm like, okay, I understand you want to take a deal.
Mm-hmm.
What if I can get you a better one? What if I could try to get you a better one?
Right.
Yeah.
The client will then say yes or no. Yes, try to get me a better one or no. And I think at that point, once they give me the second, like for sure, I'm ready to just lay down right now.
Mhm.
Then I think, all right, let's do it.
Okay.
I feel like it's harder when the choice is the other option. When like, they're saying, I want to go to trial,
Mm-hmm.
and we're like, take this.
And
plea.
yeah,
That-
and you like, man, you about
You
to
like,
get
bro,
cooked.
you on video,
You
bro.
about to
What
get
you
cooked.
talking
That's
about?
what I think it's hard. So let me give you like a
Uh-huh.
real example. This is a case that we actually had together.
Oh my
Uh-huh.
god.
I won't go. I won't
Oh
say too
my
much.
god.
Right.
But I was saying we had a client, sweet woman.
Right.
But the reality is, if she went to trial and she lost, she was facing a minimum of 5 years and could have got more.
Getting 5 at least.
You get them 5 years. at least.
That's a fact.
So like these,
It's not funny, but 5 at least is crazy when you trying to cut a deal.
right?
Yeah.
So these are the hard choices. When the choice is like, I didn't do it, I want to go to trial,
Uh-huh.
and like we're essentially convincing them, still their choice,
Yeah.
but like we're convincing them to not do it.
Mhm.
And like what happens oftentimes is like they decide to take the plea, but then have like a deep regret and deep doubt about it. Like all you're thinking about is I could have won that. That's
Yeah.
what they're thinking about. That's what we're thinking
We're
about.
thinking
Like we could have
about.
won that case. We could have won that
What
case.
if? What if? What if?
What if? But at the end of the day, the risk just what makes me okay with the decision is just understanding the risk just really wasn't worth it because it wasn't one of those. You never know for sure if you're gonna win.
Mhm.
But you're gonna have like a percentages kind of in your
Yeah.
mind, and it just wasn't enough potential to win that made me feel okay with like giving her the advice to go to trial.
Okay.
It's tough.
And I want to give a shout out to the Eliminate Mandatory Minimums Act. It's a bill that's proposed. It's not passed yet, but it's part of a package of bills that the Community Not Cages Coalition is pushing to get passed. It would do exactly that: eliminate mandatory minimums, and like that would give people the option to take this case to trial, where they really are like, I didn't do it,
Yeah.
and they don't want to lay down, but like they have to consider time on the back end.
Right.
Without mandatory minimums, that's kind of gone because the judge then has discretion to sentence people
To 3. It
right,
could, instead of mandatory
probation,
5, it's
right,
like, it could be
or
3
whatever,
too. Yeah.
you know. So shout out to that bill. I
Mhm.
hope it gets passed in our lifetime. It should be. It should
Right.
be soon.
So I got a follow up question.
Mhm.
You can answer, then I can chime in.
So,
How do you handle dealing with crimes that are really bad crimes? And like, let me just be frank, like
yeah,
assaults, sex cases,
yeah,
rapes, rapes of children,
yeah,
homicides.
yeah.
How do you justify representing people who are not only accused of those crimes, but
Yeah.
like most likely
Yeah.
committed them?
Yeah, and I know this is a hot one, and I don't treat it any differently than any other case. I don't treat it differently than the client with the misdemeanor, with the assault 3 misdemeanor. I don't treat it any differently because it's not different, in my opinion. This person is still being accused of the crime, right? They haven't been found guilty of it yet, right? I can't pass my own judgment on what happened onto this person yet, right? Like, no matter what the hell I think, this person's still just being accused of the crime, and they're innocent as they sit before me in that moment.
Right.
I also like we're gonna take like the assault ones out of it because like people can contextualize assault ones, right? We talking
By
about
assault one, you mean assault in the first degree?
assault in the first degree. Yeah, sorry. We talking about rapes, right? We're talking about rapes like predatory sexual assaults of children and homicides, right? Those are the cases that people like the general public is not as willing to accept as like these people are redeemable, right? And so in my mind, I take that out. I think everybody's a redeemable person except racists and people in power who are racist. I think most people are redeemable, and I think there are people that have issues that like are not their fault, right? They were born with whatever is going on inside of them, or they developed it from some sort of trauma or whatever, right? So even your predatory sexual assault or sexual assault of children client, like they were like, it's not like a lot of those times. It's not like these people are choosing in the sense of we're choosing, right, to do these things, right? Yes, at a level like they are like acting on a volition, like they're making an act that their mind told them to make,
Right.
but like there's something going on in the background where that idea was even put in their mind. Something is going on in the background, right? Like,
But does that make it okay though? Just because
I'm not saying
they
it's
might have
okay.
been abused or
Yeah, the
they
conduct
Right.
is not okay.
I think it's still a harm, right? Like
Uh-huh.
it's still a harm. And I think people should be held accountable for their harms. But it's like, what does that accountability look like, right? Is that like, are we as a society not creative enough to think of other ways to deal with this issue? Is our only answer bloodlust? Like this person did something bad, so they gotta get fucked too. Like that's how people think about it. Is like, damn, you did this fucked up shit, you need to get fucked up too. And I think that's a bad mindset to have. It's like we have to do the worst harm to the person who has done the worst harm to somebody else.
Right.
How does that make us any better than that person? Right? It doesn't.
And we've shown that we can get creative because like
Mhm.
in schools, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when you did something wrong, you suspended, you expelled. Now many schools are adopting what's called restorative justice, where like the
Wait, they don't suspend kids no more?
they do, but there's other options before suspension sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Like there's other like Sometimes you'll like sit the person down. Why'd you do what you do? I try
Uh-huh.
to unpack
Try to
why
unpack why they,
unpack the actual
yeah.
behavior.
Uh-huh.
And like
Exactly.
there are a lot of people who are advocating for like a similar model that they're doing in schools
Mm-hmm.
to respond to our justice system. But I didn't mean to
Right.
cut you off. But
No, no. I mean, and that was a good plug and segue. And that's exactly how I look at those types of cases, right? Even if like the client is guilty as fucking sin, I still don't think that the punishment like meets what happened. I still don't think that person deserves to be thrown in a cage and locked away for the rest of their life. All right. So that's how I come at those cases. Like, cool, this person did, maybe if they're convicted, did something bad to somebody. But like, what are we gonna do about that? What should be done about that? And like, I
So
just don't think it's prison.
you don't think I've seen this many times where I'm gonna just use someone that do drugs, right? As, oh, they go to rehab, they get clean, right? But then they come out and there's that itch. It's constantly calling their name. It's constantly in the back of their mind. And you don't think someone can be so far gone that like, hey, we might need to sit this person down.
Shaq,
Because I believe in second chances. No.
Do you hear what you just asked? This person is struggling with drug addiction, and what we should do because they're addicted and can't get rid of that itch is to sit them down in jail.
Right.
Like how is
How?
that responding to the
How's that helping
person's
them?
issue of being addicted?
Okay, I want to make this clear before we go any further. I want to make this clear before we go any further. These are not my thoughts. I am just here.
No, but it's good because people believe that.
Yeah, people believe that, and I
Yeah.
and I love beating that guy. So I'm just here to fight points against points.
Thank you.
So with that being said, you telling me that, oh, we tried helping. We tried helping. It's only so much resources we can invest into one person before we say, okay, this is not working anymore. We have to try something else. And the really only option we have right now, which is as bad as it may sound, is giving them a bed, a shelter, and 3 meals a day and outside time.
I had somebody tell me it's easier to get drugs in jail than it is to get drugs outside sometimes. But Conrad,
But then you're not amongst civilians and committing crimes against other people that are innocent, and they won't be harming innocent folks.
yeah, but that person's going to be released at some point. And what have you done to help that person not reoffend or to address the issues? All you did is put him in jail, probably made his habit worse, allowed him to associate with people who are making his habit worse, and then putting it back into community to potentially reoffend again. Or you can invest in his actual addiction and his actual mental health and give him like the lifetime supply of resources he needs to monitor that addiction, monitor that substance abuse issue, monitor that illness.
And I'll push and say, even if that person isn't going to be let out one day and is going to be held in, what have we done to help them?
Right.
What have we done to change like why they're there? That person's just gonna. The only difference is he's having the same problems, but he's just in now.
Right.
Like, what did we do to help that person? How is it any different?
And that's what makes our job so different. Is like, and so difficult. It's easy to like look at the public and look at the harm that was done wrong. It's hard to look at the person as they have been done, like harm has been done towards them. This person has arrived where they're at because if society has failed them, people have failed them. People look at him doing something wrong and turn their back. That's much more difficult to do. And like, I think it's much more honorable to look at someone who has done something wrong and like figure out, okay, why has he arrived at this point? I have a client who's in jail right now for murder. He's not one of my clients. He's not one of my murder clients, but he was whatever. Learning his background, like his mom was addicted to drugs. His father was not in his life. He bounced from foster home to foster home. He lived on the street for like 10 years. Like his decisions didn't make him his mom a drug addict.
Right.
His decision didn't make his dad leave him. He didn't choose to be in the foster care system. He didn't choose to be on the street. And like I know people who have had that background who did well in life, but they're the anomalies. Like people who've had so much wrong done to them. I'm not surprised when I see, okay, the people who are closest to you are the people who are about that life because they're the only people who ever showed you any kind of love. The only community you have are the people who are industries who are in that lifestyle.
Right.
It's not your fault that's the environment that shows you the only kind of love and care.
So they shouldn't be punished at
No,
all.
I'm not
what,
saying that.
What are we saying?
I'm saying that I look at them as harm being done to them.
Okay, so just because harm was done to me, don't mean I get to go around. Like, let's
I
say
don't
I
think they
get
should be
slapped.
punished.
Don't means I get to go around slapping everybody I see.
Go
I
ahead.
don't think they should be punished.
Why you don't think they should be punished?
Think about the word punishment. What does the word punishment mean? What are you doing to somebody
Hey.
when you're punishing them?
You disobey one of the 10 commandments, and you're outside the guidelines of being a human being.
Oh, so now we
We gonna treat you like an animal.
Now we're God, and we get to decide what to do with people.
We're not God, but all of us collectively agreed, hey, I don't think we should be killing each other.
Right.
I agree. So here's what
Uh-huh.
what I mean with that question, right? Like the word punishment like kind of connotes like you yourself want to harm that person for harming somebody else, right? That's what punishment is, penal punishment,
Uh-huh.
right? I don't think that's the way we should look at our system. That's why I use the word accountability. Do I think people should be held accountable for their actions?
Uh-huh.
Yes. Do I think they should be punished for it? No. And there's a difference, right?
Are you playing semantics here?
No, we're not. There's a difference, right? Like, think about what the word punish does to you psychologically versus accountability. The word punish, it's a violent word in and of itself. So when you say punish, you are coming at whatever you're doing from a violent mindset, right? Whereas when you say the word accountability, and I know people always say semantics this, semantics that, but language matters. We know language matters. We as lawyers know language matters to the extent that when we're doing a closing argument, we will cross out a certain word and use a different word specifically because of the effect that it's going to have on the listener, right? So semantics actually fucking matter in this conversation, which is why I don't think we should be using the word punish, because we're just going to be thinking about doing violence on that person, right? Whereas when we think about accountability, we're being creative. We're thinking about what XYZ thing can we set up to try and address the harms that have happened to everybody here.
Right.
Not only just the victim, we call him the complainant, not just the victim, but our client as well. And society too, right? Because we want to put society back as a whole too, not just...
Society's on trial as well.
Exactly. Not just doing whatever we need to do to this one person because they harm somebody else.
So how do we hold someone accountable? Not punishment, in your world.
It depends, right? I think it's a case-by-case basis. It depends on what
Okay.
happened.
Someone slapped me. I chose to slap a random person. How do we hold me accountable? No, I'm putting you on the spot, bro.
I hear you. I hear you.
That's a silly example, but like the easy answer is jail is not
right
how to do that. There's there's community service. There's sitting down with the person who you slapped and having you unpack why you slapped it. If you don't feel remorse, then maybe that's not the appropriate way to go.
Right.
Okay.
But there's other things that we can do other than jail.
Okay.
And jail the way it is now is just so bad. Like it's not an appropriate response to harm.
Maybe it even means sitting the person who slapped you down with you,
right,
and having him like understand what you did because of what he did.
It may sound silly, but it's work. There are many stories out there of like somebody killing somebody, and then that killer sitting down with the mother, the person who they killed,
right,
and that was much more transformative for the killer than putting him in jail for 15 years. Like there are
I've seen cases where families adopt the actual person.
There are examples of, if I'm not saying that can be the model for everybody to find, but like there are examples of it working that's not just so punitive. But so the few things I'll add to what Conrad said. So I've thought about this question a lot. Like how do we defend people who've done real harms? And for me, I have like 4 reasons why I do what I do that I can pull to answer any of these questions. So one reason is my faith. I'm a Christian. I believe that most people are redeemable, and I believe that there will be an ultimate judge
at the end of the day.
So I'm someone who, like, people ask me, like, how do you feel if you get somebody off who committed a murder, who committed a rape, who did something really wrong? I think that he will be judged at some point, and he'll be judged by someone who has more authority to judge than myself.
Right.
So that's how I kind of like put out that.
That's a good first one.
The second one is racism. There are certain crimes and harms that are done
Mhm.
that if you're black and you do it, if you're black and brown and you do it, if you're poor and you do it,
Mhm.
that if your white wealthy
Mhm.
counterparts do it, they're not going to be punished the same way for it. So
Absolutely.
there's like a racial justice component. I'm doing this because I'm fighting racism.
Mhm.
I'm representing this person. He may got caught with some cocaine on it. He may have done a cocaine sale, but like he's now facing 5 years. If you're selling cocaine up in upstate New York,
Right.
you're probably not gonna be going to jail for it. So like there's a racism component. The third is like the excessiveness of it. There's some times where like yes he committed some crime.
Mhm.
He raped somebody. I don't believe in extreme punishment. I don't believe in the death penalty. I don't
Mhm.
believe in life sentences.
Mhm.
And I don't believe in like extra long. I don't know what the extra long means.
Okay.
60 years, 70 years. I believe there are very few people who are irredeemable of crimes. Like people say sometimes most people grow out of criminal behavior. They get older, they get mature, and they grow out of it.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a very small percentage of people who just continue to harm people. And maybe they need some kind of confinement, but the confinement does not need to look like,
Right. 'Cause,
cell, 8x8 cell,
mhm.
how our prisons look like today. So like fighting the excessiveness of punishment is my third reason. And then my last, it was God, it was extreme, it was racism. I can't remember the last one, but like I just pulled
Mhm.
from all those, and that's how they would do. So if I have somebody who's committed a murder,
Mhm.
I don't believe they should go to jail for the rest of their life. I believe that person is redeemable.
Okay.
I believe that person should
What
try.
What if that person's an atheist? They don't believe the same thing you believe.
Uh-huh.
What if that person is a racist?
Uh-huh.
They have the swastika sign. They're probably like, you get appointed to them, and they're even like, well, I don't want this public defender. They call you the N word.
Mhm.
And they do all these things to you. Are you still gonna defend them?
Yes, because these are my justifications. I don't care if the person I'm representing shares them. It's how I do what I do. And so if the person who I'm representing is an atheist, I don't care if they believe in God. I just don't think that humans have the right to make the ultimate judgment of what happens to their life.
Okay.
I don't care if they believe in God. I still think they're redeemable.
Uh-huh.
I don't care if they're racist. I still think that they should not be uh, subject to racist policies and racist punishments. So like these are my justifications, and it has nothing to do with the person's and their belief.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
You don't want to legitimize the system just because that one person did something or is somebody that you
Right.
don't reconcile with, right? Because like if you allow the system to railroad that person,
Uh-huh.
you are in a way allowing the system to railroad everyone else, right? Because you're giving legitimacy to whatever happened to that one person,
Mhm.
right? You're giving legitimacy to that system by not standing up for this person either. And you don't want to do that. We want to tear down that system, right?
Okay.
Now I do want to add this because I know we're talking a lot about the positives of what we do,
Right.
and we're very aware that like we are working within the system.
Mhm.
We are very aware that we are not changing the system.
Mhm.
So like as much as I value what we do,
Yeah.
we're very cognizant of the fact that like
You're perpetuating it.
yeah, we are
I
a
said
part
that
of
right.
like the perpetuating. Yes,
You did.
the phrase that's used is like we're still cogs in the
Cogs.
system.
Right.
Like we are a part of the
Uh-huh.
justice system. If we did not work, if we decided to all quit today,
Yeah.
the system would fall and would crumble. But like we are a part of the system because it's a necessary role, and we're filling that role.
Right.
So I recognize that we're not that revolutionary in the sense that we're not breaking down the system,
Right.
but we are still creating an impact.
But I also
making
feel
a
like
difference.
there are people fighting those fights.
Yes,
Yes.
which is very important.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which
Okay.
makes those people, I think, more revolutionary than what we do.
Okay. Would you call them radicals?
Yeah, I think it takes a
Okay.
radical mindset to do something like that. To like break a system,
Uh-huh.
it takes a radical mindset in order to do it.
But we
Okay.
could
But
do
radical
both.
is not bad.
Okay.
We could do both. We don't have to just be a cog, right?
Right.
That's why there's movement lawyering, right? Like, and I know like we care enough to like be out there going to protests, right?
Right.
And actually like trying to change things another way,
Right.
right? So like, yes, our job may be a cog, but we personally don't have to be a cog.
Right.
So I just wanted to push back on that a little bit.
I like that. Thank you.
Okay. I'm looking right at the camera. Listen to me. This is one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this podcast, and I want this question answered, and I want it answered truthfully.
Okay.
What do you have to say to the people that think the public defenders are working with the ADAs, the DEAs, and the judges?
Hey, tell them I said pull up.
Listen,
Whoever said that.
they say public defenders are working with the prosecution team. Y'all are cutting deals, y'all working together, and y'all are in this together. And you just said y'all part of the system.
Yeah.
So don't backtrack now.
I'm not. I can go first. I feel like that is a legitimate perspective.
Okay.
I feel like we, Conrad and I, represent like a new guard of lawyers.
Mhm.
There are an old guard of lawyers who like they're the sloppy public defender. They meet them, they plead.
Oh yeah, they don't dress well.
You know,
Stop
that-
it.
That's
No
not what
matter
I
how
mean,
you
but, like,
dress,
Now we know
bro.
why y'all don't dress well. Y'all getting paid by the government.
there is a perception of like the old bad public
Yeah.
defender. And there are some public defenders who do schmooze with the judges, who do schmooze with the DAs. Like that's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
All I will say is like anybody who pays any attention to like the newer age lawyers and has a conversation with newer age lawyers
Mhm.
will know that we are actively fighting against that perception,
Mhm.
and that most of the people who I rock with and who
Yeah.
I share space with don't perpetuate that idea of a public defender.
Okay. Conrad, you working with the DEA or not, bro?
Listen, anyone that says that to me could pull up. All right. You know, people know who I am. People know what I'm about.
Uh-huh.
But like, yes, that is legitimate. There are lawyers out there. There are public defenders out there that I guess, like Imani said, schmooze with the DAs and the judges and are willing to just throw their clients to the wolves. But
Right.
like, we're not. That's not what a public defender is, right? Like,
Right.
that's not what a public defender is. We actually are a separate entity from the prosecutor and the judge. Like,
Right.
our ethics codes say we are client centered. We are tied to the client, right? So it's the client's wants and needs that controls for a public defender,
Right.
right? Somebody that's actually a public defender and not just like doing a job, I guess.
And I say where we work,
Uh-huh.
there's no fraternizing with other side. Like if we go somewhere and it's a bar
Yeah.
and there's mad DAs at the bar,
Uh-huh.
we
will feel
moving.
uncomfortable. We're like, yo,
bouncing.
we got to bounce.
We out.
Like
Okay.
it's we're not.
Although
we're
we
not,
should tell them
we're
to
not
be
sharing drinks together. We're not
Uh-huh.
taking shots together.
Mhm.
Like where we work is really clear line, and I know there's a lot of places like right now that's like that. It's very, but there's some that's
But-
like
But
Mhm.
you know what? Let me do say this, right? Like, I'm of the mindset for the most part, at least starting out, that you trap more flies with honey or trap more bees with honey, right? So
Yeah.
like, if my client tells me I want XYZ deal, go make that happen, I'm not going to be cussing at the prosecutor every time I see them, right? Because
Okay.
I know they control that aspect of the case. They control whether you're going to get a deal or not.
Right.
Right.
Right. So like, it doesn't make sense legitimately to go in there on some hot shit all the time. Like, yo, fuck you. Like you doing X, Y, Z. That's it doesn't make sense. Right. So like, yeah, there are times where you're going to have to like be kind to people
Mhm.
to get like what you're looking for.
Okay.
You know, so but that doesn't mean I'm working with the DA. Like
Okay.
my goal is not to work with the DA. My goal is to realize your needs and what you asked me to do.
Mm-hmm.
So like you got to give me the wherewithal to go about that how best I think is to go about that.
Okay.
Right. But if I'm schmoozing with the DA, and the DA's like, yeah, I'm only gonna give you 5. And I was like, oh yo, he said 5, go ahead, take then that's a problem. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? So
Right.
We're gonna leave you on a cliffhanger. We're gonna get into more about public defenders working with the DAs and judges and how do y'all go about bargaining for time, and do judges like y'all? Do they be more favorable if a certain prosecutor likes you? Are they more favorable and things like that?
Yeah.
And how those relationships affect your clients?
Right.
Because if I'm a prosecutor and I don't like Conrad, any client he pull up in front of me, hey, I'm
Right.
throwing a book at him.
Right.
But if I like Imani, I'm like, hey, Imani, you know what? I don't see no crime here. You know what I mean? We'll just give him probation. We'll offer probation. With all that being said, I would like to announce that the brothers-in-law upcoming podcast will be hosted by these two beautiful young gentlemen, Imani Wawewu, Conrad Blackburn. And it's just going to be an exciting podcast about law, knowing your rights.
The idea behind the podcast is both Conrad and I, because of our privilege and because of our ability to go to law school and work in this job, we are privy to much more about our laws, our rights, and our experiences. And we would be remiss not to make sure we give back and put people on game. So we're going to be having episodes where we're talking about our experiences, talking about your rights as jurors, talking about prosecutors, and why not become a prosecutor? There's much more power as a prosecutor. all different kinds of topics
Mhm.
we're going to address. But the spirit behind brothers-in-law is the fact that we have been privileged to information, and now we want to put y'all onto it as well. So it's not free legal advice, but it is free game. So stay
Ooh.
tuned.
And that's what we have, ladies and gentlemen. Love and respect.
Peace.
Peace.